And thank you very much for joining me as we move together through these turbulent times like no others that we've ever seen. I did post a bit of a general overview about the eclipses in September on my video for all 12 signs for September, but today I wanted to talk just a little bit more precisely to the first of the eclipses, the autumn eclipses that we're having on the 7th of September. So here in the UK, this eclipse will occur at about 9 minutes past 7 o'clock in the evening, but you may need to adjust for your time zones depending on where you are in the world. And this is like the first, not quite the first, we started this process back in February actually, when we had the Virgo full moon lunar eclipse. I think it was on the 14th, something like that. I think it was the 14th actually, Valentine's Day. But here we are in the autumn, and these eclipses are very powerful. And this will be the first of the eclipse of these two, this pair, which begin this process of eliminating, releasing, healing, and processing. Now, that said, the effects of an eclipse don't automatically happen the day of the eclipse. I know I've been feeling this eclipse on the 7th quite powerfully for 4 or 5 days now. It's been really hitting me, and it's not been altogether pleasant, I have to say. But what tends to happen with the eclipse is as other planets resonate with that degree, that point where the eclipse is occurring, then it triggers the eclipse events. So if, in a sense, it gets reactivated and reactivated. So we're on 1522 degrees of Pisces, 1522 degrees of Virgo for the moon. So it's full moon, so we have sun and moon opposite. So anyone with key planets at 15 degrees of mutable signs will be very likely be feeling this, but also as other planets reach that point, then they will be triggering some of the eclipse events. So there are several sort of signatures here that make me think of justice, divine justice, retribution. I've already mentioned Saturn, which has retrograded back to the anaretic degree of Pisces, and which sits on that degree throughout the whole eclipse period. But also we have Jupiter in Cancer squaring Mars in Libra, and the sign of Libra is very concerned with justice, and so is Jupiter. And I think we have this notion of justice, the whole question of what is justice and where has it not been applied, where have people not had justice. And as I said in my last video, there's also this question that Virgo, which is our opposite sign, opposite from the full moon eclipse in Virgo with the sun, it very much represents the people, the public, we the people. And so I think there is a bit of an outcry happening for fair play, for justice, and for the truth. I think people will be seeking that. Now, it strikes me as interesting as we say a final goodbye to the age of Pisces and be fully in the age of Aquarius, that there are certain Piscean themes that we need to see and shed light on. And some of these have been victimhood. They have been scapegoating. They have been sacrifice, unnecessary, inappropriate sacrifice. And harking back to what I was just saying about justice, I think that we are rounding this up, both in a society that has been more than happy over the whole globe to sacrifice certain sections of the community without a second thought, based on gender or race or class or whatever. And also the need to find self-love, self-worth in a world that has not particularly enabled us or encouraged the promotion of those things. This is also the axis of health, and that is physical health, that is mental health, which is in crisis in our society in many ways, and even more so spiritual health. And this is about trying to restore a healthy balance where it is possible to serve without being servile, where it's possible to be of service without losing sight of the self, finding the balance in all of those issues. And it's an unusual time because all of the outer planets and social planets are going backwards. They're in retrograde motion. And all of the personal planets are direct. But the personal planets are also changing signs this month. So we've got this idea of they'll all be hitting the 29th degree and the 1st degree of the sign they're moving out of and the sign they're moving into. And at the same time, the outer planets will be retrograding back to the very 29th degree and then turning and coming to the 1st degree. So everything is happening around that tipping point between the 29th and early degrees. So we're very much at a beginning. But we may feel with the personal planets all changing signs and moving forward, that we wish to be moving forward, we wish to make progress, we wish to move into the future, we wish to be through this, but the outer planets are taking us back and saying, we need a second look, we need to get things right. I did address this question in my little tarot reading for September. What was the purpose of the retrograde planet? So do have a look at that if you haven't already. And of course, I talked about retrogradation. Chiron is retrograde. So we're revisiting, going back over, reopening, if you like, old wounds, feelings of worthlessness, insecurity, shame, abandonment, rejection, not being good enough, all of that. We're revisiting it again in order to finally, so we've been revisiting it for quite some time, to release, to acknowledge, to heal. So this eclipse is happening close to the north node of the moon. All eclipses are close to the nodes. This is the north node. And the north node is our direction, the way in which we're fated to go, encouraged to go. And it is, if you like, our more conscious aspect, what we are coming into consciousness, what we can be conscious of. The south node can often be that which can lie a little in shadow, which can be less conscious. But of course, at a full moon, you have the sun opposite the moon, shining its light on everything. So, the sun here at this eclipse point is really illuminating the issues that we need to release. And Mercury is also very close to the sun in Virgo. Now this, I think, has really good aspects and really not so good aspects. Amongst the better aspects, I think, is the Virgo and Mercury criticism of things to do with the people, and that coming conscious, and the full moon throwing a big light on that. Less positively, I think it can be a blowing up of the self-criticism that can be possible in Virgo. The self-criticism, self-doubt, all of those things that can destroy the self, this overthinking of imperfections that Virgo can have. So in combination with Chiron, we need to be watching out for that, I think. And of course, the shadow of the Earth, because the Earth is between the Sun and the Moon at the point of the lunar eclipse. And so the light of the Sun cannot shine onto the Moon. And then thus the Moon is in darkness. And I think if you have, I mean, we will all feel this, but if you have a particularly prominent moon in your chart, then you may feel it even more so. I mean, for myself, I am a nocturnal birth. Was born after dark, and the moon is, I have a bucket chart, and the moon is a singleton for me. So it probably is the strongest planet in my chart. So if you're like that, then you will perhaps feel this even more intensely, but obviously we're all feeling it. This eclipse on the 7th is so much a part of a sequence. It began with that new moon in Virgo, right on the 1st degree of Virgo, and we've got that second new moon on the 21st, I beg your pardon, just before equinox on the 29th degree of Virgo. So, you know, we're bookended the entire sign of Virgo here. And there's so much more to say about that, and I think it needs to be seen as a whole. So I'm going to save some of my discussion for my next video about the partial solar eclipse happening on the 21st, just before equinox, which I think is a very significant event, really. If you want to know more about the impact of the eclipses on your sign, then please look at my previous video where I look into that for each of the signs. I think for now I will leave it here. I'm experiencing a few technical problems and I need to keep my videos on the shorter side, so I'm just mindful of that. Thank you so much if you've stayed with me this far. You know, having your encouragement is absolutely superb and certainly keeps me going. So thank you very much for spending your time here today. And I do hope that all of us can hold that picture of who we are becoming. And I think because it's a Piscean total eclipse, ultimately resistance is futile and we flow with it, I guess. So I'll leave you with that thought and see you next time. Bye-bye.